This is going to be the tabletop. It's rough right now, fresh out of the mill. Well, not fresh, it's been curing for quite a few years. But it's approximately 33 inches long, about 18 something wide. And I think this is the side that I'm going to face up because I really like this texture up here. So this now is still about 18, 19 by 33. But, you know, I'll sand this down, sand those legs down, and put a urethane coat on it. Think about how I'm going to put legs. I'm looking at this thinking leg, 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 leg. Maybe inferred because this is again that funny area. So maybe the leg on the other side about here. I have 4 Mountain Laurel logs and I'm going to make for legs out of this desk, and I'm cutting them to 28 inches, and I'll just cut that off because this looks like maybe it's rotten. So I'm kind of trying to level it. So I raised this up and try to keep it level more so the right angle is down here. I don't know if you could tell, but that's pretty close to a right angle. But we'll see. Everything may change, so that's the idea. So if you look at these 4 legs at a low angle, they look the same. So that's a good start. So I don't know if you can tell, but one of these legs is apple, that one, and these are all Mountain Laurel. So I'm either going to continue to move ahead and just use this apple log, or wait and get another Mountain Laurel. I have a bunch, so if you saw my taking down the apple tree video, you'll see how many of these I actually gleaned off of the land. I have tons of this too, but it's usually short and stubby, and this was probably the straightest apple that I had. I found another Mountain Laurel, very curvy though, so look at it. It'll be challenging because it's curvy in comparison to these other guys. So I'm using this draw knife. I am using 2 hands, but it's hard to do it. I'm filming with my iPhone. But I'm going to clean all of these up with the draw knife and then probably sand them. But I'm kind of liking these little areas where the draw knife pulls it off and then leaving some of this. And once it's sanded, the difference between light and medium and maybe darker will look cool. So now I'm working on the tabletop again before it really gets a sand. And I was going to put milliput in these. It's a epoxy, and it's a very firm epoxy, so it's kind of easy to work with. It's not like resin which pours into a crack, which can be it's very viscous, so it leaks. Milliput doesn't leak at all. But as you can see, I decided not to use milliput, and I ended up going with this dark colored CA glue, which is Starbond. And you know, that worked, but sanding it gets real funky, and boy does it smell, and it's kind of caustic on the eyes too. So, you know, you got to make those decisions how much you're going to sand. I left it a little bit higher than the wood itself, so I could sand it flat. That I'm talking about the not the milliput. That has no problem sanding it. I should have used it, but you know, hindsight's 20/20. I ended up using the CA glue, and you'll see what happens. So I'm going to let these dry for a couple of days. It is crazy glue, and it is, well, it's, don't ask me how to pronounce it, but this is Starbond. It's brown, medium thick, high performance, crinoarcolate. I don't know. Anyway, it's one of the best crazy glues on the market. So I'm hoping that, you know, it seeped into the wood. I haven't done a thing to this wood, so it's all going to need to be sanded, which, you know, will be great. And then I'll just do like a wire brush or something on this, because this is the coolest part of this desk. I'll take this bark off and hopefully reveal more of this underneath, which is awesome. This is the underside. It did seep through, but I expected that. Even though it's a medium viscosity, it's still fluid enough to seep through to the bottom. But it's okay because I taped it. And even that went through, interestingly enough. But because I sprayed that freeze stuff on it, that froze it and prevented it from really seeping through. I think it helped with this too. Now I'm going to take the bark off of this underside here all the way around and see how that looks. So this bark, for whatever reason, is on there like cement. So I think I'm going to take this new mini angle grinder that I bought, and I'll talk about that once I start working on this, but that is on there very securely. And I'm not really a fan of how the chisel looks, so I'll have to grind it all down. It does not look like that smooth and beautiful, because the bark isn't just falling off. Have to think of a new thing to do, because that's not looking great. to do 120 grit, so it should be pretty nice when I move to 220. And I'm using this tool instead. So this wood is gorgeous. Besides these red fiery markings, it just has beautiful character and figure. I mean, this almost looks like a curly maple, but once it's got urethane on it, it's gonna look amazing. I'll put some water on it and show you. So look at this area right here. That is just, I don't know if you can see it that well, but wow, it is gorgeous. And that is the final top. I'm not going to do anything more to that. That is it. So that looks pretty nice. I had my first coat, as you just saw, and then I went back with the new Proxon new Proxon angle grinder, which I'm doing a review, as I said. I'll put it at the end, in one of the end caps and end screens, so stick with the video and you'll see that at the end. But I talk about this great tool. But what I'm doing right now is just cleaning up the edges. I don't touch the top. What I've done is I've touched the edges of the top, which I'm going to put another coat on this thing anyway, so it doesn't matter. I really needed to clean up these edges, and that I didn't do a lot to that area where it's so interesting. And I don't know if it's a burl. If you know, put it in the comments below. But it's just got all that great texture, and it's so interesting the way bark makes the tree grow. And sometimes it's from bugs getting in there, and there's a number of reasons. But you know what, if you know what it is, add it below, because I'm sure the viewers will want to know. I want to know. So if you could let me know, that would be awesome. Thanks. now I am moving on to a green. It's very malleable in terms of getting into small areas, which is why I'm using it for this job, in the hopes that I can dig out some of that stuff without gouging it with a digging out tool. So I didn't want to cause more damage to that area because I really like that area. But I didn't really find it all that effective. Maybe I'm using it wrong. I don't know, but it just didn't seem to do what I was anticipating that it would do. I believe online I found that it was meant for sanding, but it just didn't seem to do the trick. I don't know. I can see some sawdust and dust coming off of it, so it does do something. Maybe it's just not aggressive enough for my taste. And now I'm back to these Mountain Laurel legs where I am sanding down just to make it nice and smooth. And I did leave the white and the light brown areas, which I think is very cool. And once I get done with these 4 legs, then I will urethane them, and that will be the final stage with the legs. So these are the sanded, well, actually peeled them with a peeler, you saw that, and sanded. And I like the white and the cambium layer showing. These are Mountain Laurels, and these are going to be the legs for that top right there. Once these all dry, that'll be the next, well, I don't know what I'll do next. We'll see. So when I made these legs, I tried to keep them as right angle up and down and on the bottom as possible. So let me back away, and you can see it's kind of at a right angle to the box elder. We'll see how the rest of them look. So there all 4 legs are, but I'm in a garage, and this floor kind of tips down toward the door. So I don't know how much that's going to affect it. They look pretty straight. So how am I going to attach these? This is the tricky part. They are, what did I say? How tall are they? These legs are 28 inches tall. So with this, it's probably going to be about 29 and a half. So I think what I'm going to do is make like a plate down here. Could be a circular plate with a hole in it the size of this leg, and then screw that down. Put a plate here, a circular plate, screw that down into here, and then, I don't know, maybe into the side. I have to make it secure, so that's the next question. If any of you have a better way to secure irregular legs like this to a table, let me know. The other idea I have, it would make it a little taller, but it's not going to be a desk anymore, so what if it's 30 inches or more? Put a plate and screw the plate into the bottom of the leg and then screw it in here. Certainly would be easier. So I decided to take this board here. It's from a tongue and groove. I'm going to cut off the tongue and I'm going to cut out the groove. And it's about 5 3/4. So I'm going to measure 5 3/4. No, it's about 4 3/4. So I'm going to measure 4 3/4. If I split this in half, 8 1/2, 4 1/4, 4 1/4 might be sufficient. And then just make this. As long as it fits, that's kind of tight. Or maybe I will make it the same size. In other words, make it round. Take the shape. I think I have more of this stuff, so it's round. And then lift this leg up and screw it into the bottom in about 3 or 4 places. This is pine, but I still think it'll be strong enough to hold this thing in place. And I think it'll depend on the length of the screws I put through here that go into the bottom of this. Basically, like that. And why am I doing that? I'm going to raise it another 3/4 of an inch, because now I can take this remnant and screw it right in the corners. Maybe I will leave it not round, but square. So let me go make those, and I'll be right back. So I ripped the tongue and the groove off on the bandsaw. It's just easy. Getting the table saw ready, and I didn't need to. Bandsaw did a great job. And I'm just gonna chamfer. Just take off the rough edges. This is an 80 grit. So my positioning on these table legs, I got to be careful because this is a live edge, so it's going in. I got to be able to make sure a screw goes all the way through this piece and into this piece, into the tabletop, without going through the top. So how I'm going to position these is relevant to the live edge. So it has to get moved in because the screws are going here, 1, 2, in each corner. I decided not to cut them. This one is kind of close. And I'm also thinking about the way they look when they're in the air. Their positioning. Like this one's really funky, so it kind of goes in. It's got a bump there. So I thought possibly switching it around, turning it to see. I don't like the way that looks. I don't really like the way that looks. Possibly that. Or turning it even one more turn like that. I think that's probably the best, just the way I had it. Doing a light sanding with 220. It's been urethaned, so it doesn't, just needs to take off any raised fibers that the urethane, water-based urethane, may have brought up. This rag is saturated with feeding wax, and I'm just gonna, I don't want to put it on too thick. So I just want to go over the top of it with this. And that, what did I put over here? I filled this with a black CA glue. It's hard as a rock. But when I sanded it, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. So I think I would use something like Millie Put next time. It's just too big of a gap, I think. So now I'm going to wipe down the feeding wax so it's a pretty consistent wipe down the, it's kind of, you try not to get much on, but you got to get enough on. So anyway, that's that. The next step is, this is 1,000 grit. It might be a big jump between 220 and 1,000, but that's what I'm doing. You can see that pulls up a lot of the wax, but wow, it's really smooth. And it doesn't leave marks because it's such a fine grit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to take this thing, flip it around so it's dry, wipe it off again. And that's that. extremely smooth. Like, wow, buttery smooth. I don't think this is gonna stay here, but until I find a place for it, that's the final. Mountain Laurel legs with box elder top. And the thing about this box elder is it has all of these red, almost like flames. I'll try to add in a link at the end that shows other things that I've made using this box elder. This is a box elder serving platter that I made. You can see the flames. It's book matched, so it was 2 slices. This one is the one lower and that one's the next one up, but they're book matched, so I just love this. And when it's freshly waxed, it's just gorgeous, really brings out the reds. I hope you enjoyed this video. It took me about 2 years for this box elder to dry out. And so it was a, wait and be patient kind of a deal, but that's the way it is sometimes, especially with wood. Please subscribe, like, share. You know the drill. Hit the all button. And I will see you next week.